We have two exhausted political parties right now. We have a conversation in Washington that is really stultifying relative to the vibrance and the vitality of the American people and relative to the magnitude of the challenges we face right now and what really needs to be accomplished in our time.
Philanthropy just has such an advantage of being insulated from the politics, and I think we have to pay attention to the politics. We don't operate in a vacuum, but you know, philanthropy can stay the course in a way that politicians often can't. Pitt mentioned, you know, the flexibility and agility that private resources have that public dollars don't, and there's that ability to stick to things even when the winds blow other ways.
And I think one of the fundamental sort of heuristic devices we should use when we think about policy conversations is, are we ultimately trying to re-empower families and religious and cultural institutions and mediating institutions and local enterprises? Are we trying to re-empower them with whatever the new welfare state becomes, or are we trying to displace them?
I would always rather have 100,000 smart people working on a problem than one government agency. Not because necessarily every local answer is going to be brilliant, but in combination, they're going to be smart.
The human body is oriented towards health. That the moment there's injuries, antibodies are drawn to the point of injury and healing begins. Well, grassroots leaders that are indigenous to these communities are like human antibodies. Many of them have overcome the same difficulty they are inspiring others to come.
The private sector is not perfect. People in the private sector on occasion stub their toe and do foolish things, but compared to the public sector, it's no contest. And so if we want to do it right, if we want to do it in such a way that we maximize the benefit, that we eliminate waste and abuse and fraud, you have to hand the baton to the private sector, because we can do it so much better.
The most important things that have happened in public education, especially related to disadvantaged kids, over the last quarter century are almost entirely the result of smart activity happening in civil society, clever activity, entrepreneurial activity that would not have happened were it not for philanthropists.
What's exciting is we're living in a time with technology is making it easier and easier to actually organize people in need with groups of volunteers. You know, you think about, we're living in this incredible time where some of the most innovative companies, whether it's Amazon or Airbnb or Uber, it doesn't create a product or service, but they organize a market. And that's exactly what we can do in civil society. You have millions of people who need help, and you have millions of talented individuals who want to volunteer and love and care for their neighbors.
It's not created by building something large, it's all the small interactions of people. And so I like to think about one of my favorite philanthropies is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember going to a philanthropy roundtable meeting, and Laura and I went around from presentation to presentation. And the only one we really liked was the AA meeting. And so we got ready to write a check, and we found out they don't take money.
Yeah.
you can't give more, if I remember correctly, more than $3,000 to AA, and you have to be a member. And I knew I had helped members of my family. And then I realized the genius of AA is it's all built on relationships. It's built on promises between people, between sponsors and those who need it. And so it's the power of people interacting with each other and caring for each other and holding each other accountable. And that's what love is. Love is caring enough to invest in another person.
And one of the things that government can't do is legitimately love and care for somebody in need. Only private individuals, only really volunteers and civil society can do that.
And I think that the only way that people can reach their fullest potential is in a society that protects individual freedom and promotes individual freedom and individual responsibility.
The government historically has a rather poor record of doing and attempting to do what the philanthropic community has done fairly efficiently in the past.
There's no question. Government programs are inadequate, bureaucratic, typically don't work, take longer, and cost more. So you add all those things together and you say, what's more effective? And I would say the charitable world and the foundation world can affect much more, be much more effective, and accomplish 10 times as much as any federal program. I think we've seen that over and over and over and over. Every time government gets involved, it's like walking into quicksand. The bureaucrat, the layers of decision making, the lack of risk takers, all of those things are not the problem that philanthropic organizations have.
I'm concerned that the government may try and go after substantial amounts of monies that are in the philanthropic sector. Now, this would if they were successful at doing this, would have a huge and very negative impact on the whole philanthropic community.
If there are issues in our society that aren't governmental, and that we as a group of people are drifting in a direction that's not necessarily great for our society, how else would you fix it aside from a group of people coming together with a passion to go move in a different direction? Because again, I firmly believe that if we as individuals are left to our own designs and are not held responsible to a higher authority or to our neighbors, and it's just all about ourselves, that we'll become a civilization that goes away.
My husband and I love to get out and paddleboard in the summer, where we live out in Holland in the summer, and early one morning we were out on Lake Makatawa paddleboarding, and there was a giant algae bloom, so the whole lake was like bright green. And as we were paddling along, I said, this is just gross. We have to do something about this. So we both set out to find out what has been done. What was the status of any effort to help clean up this lake? And found that while there had been little disjointed efforts, there was really no comprehensive plan to actually assess what the problem was and then figure out what the solution was. And so we, along with another family in the community, really brought together the resources and identified the leader to be able to help carry a plan forward. And just 2 days ago, I was meeting with someone else who has a home on the lake there, and they said, by the way, this Memorial Weekend, we could actually see fish off the end of our dock. It's the first time, and I can remember how long I could see more than 3 or 4 feet down into the water. And so that was just such an affirmation to me of doing something, recognizing this is a problem, and instead of saying, like, you could do is just, okay, somebody else has to, government will take care of that. No, private citizens came together, put the resources and plan behind it, and we're now having a measurable and noticeable and marked impact.